Today I want to show you the last game of mine, which I played in the very last team event against Pirmasens. My opponent, Outmaster, fell victim to my opening preparation. So basically it was my lucky day. And on top our team won 4.5 to 3.5. By the way, it's the first time I do some video analysis in English, so that's rather a tough challenge for me. Okay, let's get started. E4. My opponent usually plays E4. I decided to play it quietly. Caro-Kann defense named after Horatio Caro and Marcus Kann. D4, normal move, D5. Here there are several possibilities which are tried normally. Most bit lines are, say, knight c3 or knight d2. Then black has to decide for he which line he wants to play. Most trendy nowadays is e5, and this is a tough nut to crack for black, so probably best. Okay, my opponent played ed5, cd5. Now c4 would lead to the once feared Panov attack, but my opponent decided to play bishop d3, exchange variation with normal development. This was a pet line of Bobby Fischer. Okay, the heydays are gone, but it's not that easy to play for. One shouldn't underestimate such moves. And on amateur or hobby player level, one has to face it really often. Okay, knight c6, the usual move. c3, and yeah, the most played line is probably knight f6. And typical of this line is bishop f4, followed by queen b3, and black has to decide whether he plays queen d7 or queen c8. Both are sensible and probably equal. I like best queen c7, preventing this bishop f4 idea for the time being. And main line is knight e2, renewing the threat of bishop f4, but this knight is going to be pinned first. And now an immediate bishop f4 is bad because the knight is pinned, winning back the queen, and this is somewhat better for black, so this is no real danger. And there are some relatively new lines which include some fancy moves like queen e1 and also fancy rook g8, and this is about equal. So the threat was now black can retreat to the bishop to g6 and can take back with the h pawn after rook g8, or the rook is ready to, that one can play g5 at a certain point of time. So this is the latest fashion, so to say. Yeah, so much the theory of knight e2. And during preparation, I saw that my opponent has played once h3 immediately, which slows down development and preventing all this pinning in advance. So the spinning with bishop g4. And yeah, on Saturday, the first idea was just to play normal play. Always when h3 is played, black goes for lines with g6, something like g6 immediately, or say knight f6 first, knight f3, and g6, with the idea of bishop f5. Because white has weakened the position with h3, and one doesn't want to play g3 as well when one has played h3 before. So this makes a lot of sense. And this is, I like black, so this is very much okay. Knight comes to e4 and rook g8, long castling. Probably equals plus, so a bit better for black. Well, black is equalized. But on that Sunday morning, 1 or 2 hours before the game, I found an interesting possibility. e5, because white has made some pawn moves and is not he has not developed his knight to f3, and the isolated queen's pawn position should be good, all because of this weakening of g3 and h3, and c3 is not the killer move at all, and yeah, so this should lead to a good isolated queen's pawn position. And I looked at a concrete theory. White has to take. Yeah, and in return for the weakened pawn position, black has a free play. Knight f3 is an interesting possibility. I would probably just have taken the bishop on d3 to have a long-term advantage in return for the probable loss of the d5 pawn, or for the weak pawn. So even if the pawn gets lost, there is some strategic advantage of the two bishops, and an open game, an open play. So I would have probably taken the bishop. And looking at the check, I noticed that in correspondence chess, most players played knight c6, sacrificing the pawn d5. If white takes, they harass the queen, and something like this. There was a correspondence game which went that way. Here draw was agreed. So also those possibilities with the bishops, and white somewhat cramped, and yeah, it's probably equal. So as compensation for the pawn down, he has free play. Black has free play. So white game went that way. White gave this check, and I thought that on bishop d7 that queen d5 is so bad and practically immediately losing on the spot. So I thought that white doesn't dare to take the pawn, but after a couple of minutes of thinking, I played bishop d7, and if white exchanges on d7, this would be also reasonable isolated queen's pawn position with the free game, and probably equal, not bad. But after not very much time of contemplating, white took the bait, which is a severe error, and just a variation. If white takes on d7, something like this, and black is okay. Okay, but as I mentioned before, white took on d5 and now he's in dire straits. This is practically losing. The queen is threatened to be x-rayed by bishop g4. Bishop c6 is threatening, h6 and knight f6, and there's a whole bunch of threats which cannot be parried at all. The computer gives a line in which white survives for a couple of moves, but which looks horrible. Something went terribly wrong. Okay. There was one game where white took on with the queen on d5, which I have known before, and and my opponent played the same. Bishop f4, and now x-raying the queen. White has to part with the queen. In this particular game, queen d5 was played, which I played as well. And now my opponent deviated from this stem game, but not really good stem game, a bad game, yeah. So this stem game went that way. I go quickly through it because it's not that interesting. Black simply winning. The queen is too strong. And here white resigned. Black was Grandmaster Lalic from former Yugoslavia. Okay, so my opponent deviated with bishop e2. I took on g2. White sacrificed another rook or another exchange. Okay, trying to trap the queen with bishop f3, queen e4. Yeah, so the queen does the job alone. Now, probably knight f3 would have been the wiser choice because queen c2 is another strong threat, winning another piece. Yeah, a tribute to the queen. She does all the dirty work alone. Yeah, white is practically forced to take to give another piece. Yeah, this is not a bad choice. Instead of retreating with the queen stays in the enemy camp to bind some forces and creating some further threats. So all black has to do is to develop and not get mated. Yeah, probably want to play knight e4, knight e5, knight g5, developing and preventing knight e4. I would have taken it immediately. It's still possible to lose the game immediately. For example, when white had tried rook d5, this would have been mate. So still possible to lose it within one move. Watch out for such tricks. And now I saw that if I return a part of my material, I will have the chance to complete my development, and then game is basically over. Knight f6. Idea a simple rook d8 or rook e8. Yeah, the computer would play, I think, something like knight e4, but that's not simple chess. Bishop g4 and So the main idea was simply to return a piece and being up the queen for 2 pieces, which is not sufficient. For example, takes, and is completely lost for white. 3 pieces for the queen, okay, but 3 pieces for queen and bishop is not sufficient. Now this would have been a good time to resign the game, but white played on a couple of moves. 94. Simple chess, threatening to exchange some pieces and win the game. Computer would take further material, but amongst humans, it's just better to simplify the position, and it's easier to play, and one cannot make any mistakes and so on. So normal chess. Yeah, if white had played rook e1, knight d2 would have won the rook. Knight d2 anyway. Ideas queen f1. Yeah, cracking up the position and exchanging another piece, or halvening the pair of bishops, simply taking back. White is so much material down, if he could afford to let a piece hang and then still material up. So yeah, but white couldn't bring him to resign the game. Now additionally to the load of material, a king attack is coming. And due to my prep, I had still plenty of time on my clock, and I could figure out moves like queen f4, which threat queen takes g4, or when white took the rook on, or when white takes the rook on d5, he's able to play the problem like mate queen c4. This would have been a way to finish the game in style. So I gave white the chance, but okay. He played f3, and after a couple of minutes, queen c4 is practically winning the house, and yeah, so I thought I renewed the chance that white could end the game with style, and with a smile he went for the beautiful problem like mate, which was the end of the game. Thank you.